There are 3 fairway woods in the Callaway Rogue ST range, but which one is right for your game? Let's go find out. We see a lot of updated technologies inside the fairway woods this year. First up is the jailbreak, which has been drastically redesigned. Instead of being across the centre, this has been separated into the heel and the toe, and this allows the face to flex a lot more, which is going to give you more ball speed. The club face is made from C300 margin steel. This has high flexibility and strength, which means you're going to get that flex for ball speed. We have the flash face cup integrated into this, and this is really going to help with that launch and spin consistency. And talking of the club faces, each model and each loft has its own specifically designed club face thanks to Callaway's AI technology. On the sole here you can see the tungsten speed cartridge. This brings a lot of weight low and forward, and that helps you to optimise your spin and your launch conditions. So there are 3 models in this range. First up I've got the Max. This is really designed to kind of sit in the middle of the other 2, and it's going to offer you a lot of distance and forgiveness. Now I really like the shaping of this over the ball. It's actually quite compact, which personally I really like. It's fairly simple on the top, it's matte and it's very similar to the drivers. And also we see on the club face here there's kind of 3 different sections with small lines on it, which I actually think frames the ball really nicely. That was a really nice ball flight. Very high actually. For a fairway wood, what I'm really wanting to see is like ease of launch, because it's one of those clubs that's quite hard to hit, and you want to feel confident over the ball, knowing that you don't kind of have to get it up in the air, like you're just going to get a good height on it and a good flight and a hang time. And that was really nice. Seemed like it flew pretty far as well. Yeah, that's carried up at like 211, which is definitely pretty impressive. Again, really nice height on that. A little bit more draw than we saw on the first one actually. But it's fallen out at 216 and the height was up in the 90 feet, so I'd definitely be very happy with that. I just love that ball flight when you catch it. It's really nice. I am kind of surprised though that it's so small. It's not a bad thing, I love the way it looks, but I just thought as a Max model, you think that that's going to be quite forgiving and you might expect the head to be a little bit bigger. That felt quick. 1.52 smash, and that's flown out over 220. That's really solid for a 3-wood. I've had Maverick in the bag for like the last 2 seasons, and I really like that because I feel like it's easy to launch. But sometimes I do feel like I lose out on distance a little bit. But with this I really feel like I'm getting the best of both worlds. Next up we have the Max D. So this is designed to be that draw bias offering. And straight over the ball you can see the shaping is a little bit different here. It's a little bit bigger and more elongated, and I definitely think it's probably more confidence inspiring over the ball for a lot of golfers. The face almost looks like it's a little bit shallower just because it's a bit longer, but really it isn't. And we've got very similar visuals here as the other one in terms of aesthetics. Oh, that ball flight was really high. Nice though, definitely a little bit higher than we saw with the Max though, which is probably what I would have expected. Pretty good again in terms of distance though, that's flown up at 217, but in terms of height that was at 110 feet, so quite a big jump up from like the 90s we were seeing previously. Can definitely see we're getting a little bit more of that shot shape. It's not too dramatic so far, but both of those were really nice shots, just kind of little draws. Yeah, you can definitely see there's a little bit more movement on those ones, but I would say also the height is definitely consistently a little bit higher. I would say in terms of distance it's good, like I'm still getting some shots over the 220 mark, but there's probably a little bit more variance than I saw with the Max model. Overall, I'd say the dispersion definitely is further left as a grouping, but I wouldn't say it's massive. But then one thing I've noticed is I've been starting them a bit further right, but then drawing them over to further left than the other ones were. So there definitely is some draw bias help there. That's really going to help people out who kind of want to straighten out a slice. So last up we have the LS, which is the low spin model. With the other two I had the same shafts in. This is similar, but it is 10 grams heavier, so that's probably going to play a little bit of a factor into the shots here. Over the ball, the top is almost identical, but we have different grooves on the face here. So we just have straight lines all the way across this, which I actually really like. I was expecting that to come out quite low, but to be honest, the flight was pretty similar. So yeah, the flight on that was still up at 115, which wouldn't have been what I've expected, and it's flown over the 220 mark. And in terms of spin, it's looking at just under the 3000, so maybe not as low as I might have thought it would have dropped for me, given the kind of heavier shaft and the lower spin head. Again, really nice high ball flight and pretty impressive distance. I mean, if the averages stay where they are now, this is going to be carrying over 220 on average, which for me with a 3-wood I would be really pleased with, never mind the fact we're hitting these kind of in cold conditions in winter. Those ones where you strike it really good, like the ball flight is really pure and it holds its line really well. But I would say with this model, there's probably not as much forgiveness in terms of that launch. Like, I feel my flight's a little bit more inconsistent than with the other ones. But I guess that does make sense in terms of the spin properties here. Oh, that was so nice. It felt fast too. And it's dead on line. Yeah, that was my longest shot yet. It flew at 230. That's like driver length. It's pretty insane. So that was definitely pretty interesting. One of the biggest standout things for me was that the LS performed so well, which is pretty interesting because if I went into a fit-in or to try these out, it wouldn't be a model that I'd even think to pick up, let alone the fact that it was in a 10 gram heavier shaft. In terms of comparing the three, it was quite interesting. The LS and the Max were definitely models that I preferred the smaller shaping of, and you could see this in the data. My club head speed actually went up by about 1 mile an hour between each club on average, so you can kind of see how I got more confident over the ball with the shapes that I preferred, which is something to think about when you're going and picking a model. In terms of the data, the LS and the Max performed very similar, which was quite surprising. Both had the spin in around the 2,400 mark, they both carried 222 on average, and the flight was both in the mid 90 feet. I would say though the Max ball flight was a little bit more consistent, and probably just the fact that it has a little bit more forgiveness in the head there. In terms of the dispersion, it actually was the LS that I hit the furthest left, even though there was the draw model there. I do feel like I was probably drawing the Max D more, but I was just starting it a little bit further right and then drawing it back in, which isn't really shown in the final dispersion data. Overall for me, the one with the worst dispersion was the Max D, but I think that's just because I don't particularly need that draw help, and seeing it behind the ball doesn't necessarily suit me. But I think for a lot of people who hit a slice, it's going to be quite comforting having that more shut shape and a bigger head. Overall, I was really impressed with the performance here. The Max and the LS were definitely my favourite models, and it'd be really interesting to see how the LS would perform with the slightly lighter shaft in. But I think the big standout factor here was the distance on these models. 222 average carry for me with a fairway wood is very long, and I'll be really interested to see how this plays out when I use it a little bit more on the golf course. Right, that's all for today. If you have any questions about any of these models or any of the other clubs in the Rogue ST lineup, feel free to drop them in the comments below or drop me a line on Twitter or Instagram. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications too. And if you're after more golf content, head over to the National Club Golfer social media channels for more.